Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, absolutely delighted that you could join us on the show. The guests in the studio tonight, Alan Ruff and Gordon Smith, are here to talk football. We'll be looking ahead to Champions League and Europa League coming this week for three Scottish clubs. We'll also be looking at the latest transfer news as well. One deal's been completed, and Borna Barisic is a Rangers player on a 4-year deal. Here's what we know about the Croatian. So there's the latest signing, Gordon Smith. He solves that left-back problem. Will that allow John Flanagan to go to right-back?
I think that's for sure. I felt that would happen. Maybe he wants... I was thinking myself, Declan John would come back in, but he looks as if he's been discarded now. And this lad's coming in here, paying a bit of money for him. He didn't make the World Cup squad, but he's got 3 caps already for Croatia. He had a big move to Dinamo Zagreb, but he never made it there. And he ended up going back to his team he's just come from now. But I think that it looks to me, Steven Gerrard's talked about having competition for places, and he'll have Tavernier for right back, and also Flanagan will go across and play there. So I think this player's been brought in. There's no doubt I think that's what's going to happen, because he is a naturally left-sided player.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we'll have competition though from Lee Wallace in there. I just don't see a future for him now.
No, I think that'll be the next move. I think Lee Wallace will put in a transfer request. Obviously, it went a bit quiet at the end of the season with him and Kenny Miller, but obviously he stayed. No, I think Lee Wallace will want to play week in, week out. I think we spoke about it at the end of the last season. I think it was Hearts. I think we mentioned might be a place he might end up at, and certainly I'm sure they'd be interested in a player of that quality.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's kind of ended on a sour note with regards to Wallace, but Steven Gerrard can only concern himself with the way he wants his side to play now and plan for the future. Transfer money aside, that's the 11th summer signing. He's clearly looked at the previous squad and thought, not good enough. Completely needs a complete change.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's some players are still there and playing. I mean, he brought, even on Sunday there, he brought back 2 players who had been left out of the game before. Murphy and Windass were brought in, hadn't played in the Thursday night in a European game, but got brought in. So there are some players that are still there, because what he's judging about the fact is that maybe with a better set of players around about them, some players will still be able to do a job. Tavernier's still playing, obviously. I still think he might have a role in midfield to play. But there's no doubt about it, there's changes being made, and he's brought in 11 players because what he has talked about is the squad was not up to strength. The squad was not good enough.
And this goes back to the argument that you and I had last season, which is quite simply, a manager can make a player better, but he can't make players who just don't have that potential better. And that's why he's emptied so many of the players under Murty and under, before him, I've completely forgotten his name now.
Yep.
Warburton didn't like him, and of course Kashinya. These
Well,
players are all gone. They're not good enough.
No, there was obviously some of them weren't good enough. You could tell they couldn't even fit in, and you knew they weren't going to fit in with better players around about them. But I did say there'll be 1 or 2 players, and I said that Brendan Rodgers proved this, that certain players who were written off under the previous regime become better players as soon as you improve the team, you bring in the right players through the heart of the team. You've got Alan McGregor's come back in, the 2 centre-halves, Katic, Goldston, are good players. You've got midfield now, Jack has come back. You think he was a player who was written off as well, and he's now all of a sudden looks like Gerrard's
Had you written Jack off?
Yes, most people had.
Yeah?
Yeah, most people had said he
picked up an injury.
But most people just said he hadn't fitted in. He wasn't good enough for Rangers, and now that's changed because of Steven Gerrard's opinion of him.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree. Listen, this is a great thing about this. We can argue non-stop. They've got to do it regularly on the pitch now. That's the big thing about it. I don't want to get bogged down with it. What's your take? And I'll get your take on it, Gordon. But first of all, Ruffy, on the appeal against the red card. I can understand why they're doing it.
I can understand why they're doing it as well. We've seen many appeals going to the tribunal, and lo and behold, it gets cut or whatever, through. A lot of us are absolutely baffled by it a lot of the times, It depends what the criteria is, and for me, there is no doubt he had a kick at the guy, and if we're going to allow that kind of thing to happen, we're opening the book up for everybody. Yeah, he was retaliated, he was maybe
You think it was a red card?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, if you're going to have players having a swing at players off the ball, then yeah, it's a red card.
Yeah.
Should McKenna have it as a red card too?
To me, that was just a barge and a shoulder to shoulder.
It wasn't shoulder to shoulder. It was shoulder. It was shoulder to face, because he was facing on. He hit him with his shoulder off the ball. And you're saying it's like a typical shoulder. I heard somebody else saying, another pundit saying, it's a shoulder charge. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, when the ball's there. This was off the. He hit him twice.
Is it deemed as violent?
I think the second one was violent conduct.
Violent conduct.
Yes.
I'm not so. Listen, this is the great. We started off on fire here. I'm not so sure I agree with you. It's violent conduct, Gordon, on the barge, because quite simply it goes on all over the park. Now, I'm not saying that makes it right, but what I'm saying is, at times there are still elements of the game that are physical, and players will get involved in these challenges. Where I think that one could easily have been solved is, again, I don't agree with you, Rafi. I think it was a quick word, yellow card, calm down.
Yeah.
If we're getting to that point now, I think we're getting red cards every week.
Yeah. He swung his leg out as he's getting knocked back the way. If you look at it, he's sort of falling back the way as he swings his leg out. But the thing was, he'd already been barged by him. The first one was not effective. It wasn't much. The second one was worse from there's no doubt, from him.
McKenna.
Yeah. Because what happened was, he was face onto him. It wasn't as if he barged shoulder to shoulder. It was a shoulder into his face, and that's what knocked him back. That's why he kicked out. So I think, why did the linesman who saw the incident not then think, well, McKenna at the very worst should have had a yellow card?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're nitpicking here, I think both of them worthy of a yellow card. Yes. Yeah. I don't think he was barging into his face. I think it's probably a good idea that you, me, and Ruffy don't go out for a drink this week, because we're clearly not getting on right at the start of the programme. But nevertheless, give us your view on it on our YouTube channel, on Facebook at PLZ Soccer, and also on our Twitter, where you can give us your thoughts on it. Yellow card, yeah. I think he'll end up getting it rescinded, to be perfectly honest with you.
If they listen to you two, he will get off it, because you put up a good case, and that's what happens when you go to these tribunals. If you've got a very good person in your corner who can bring up these things, and then the people that are on the tribunal have to look at it and make a decision. Well,
the good thing about it, if we're listening to you, it'll be the third team for everybody in the SPFL playing, because they'll all be suspended. You'll be sending them off for everything. Well, you're becoming harsh since you've been a director now. What's happening to you?
I'm just saying you can't, not just Morales, I'm just saying you can't have players getting about having a boot at people off the box. And if that's what we're going to allow, then it's just going to be carnage.
Yeah, okay.
There was somebody in a big Rangers Celtic game just got sent off just for a wee flick at somebody.
I think it was
actually.
Who
that was. It was in the box. It was just a wee flick, red card.
Yeah.
It depends. We all know at the beginning of the season that referees are told, what rules to, go for and what rules not to. And at the beginning of the season,
the referee didn't see
it was a line, but you're always vulnerable at the start. If you're going to do something out of order, because the referees have to really.
Well, it's like, I agree with you on that point. It's like the World Cup, all of a sudden the rules to the letter of the law, and then someone has a word with them and said, look, ease off here, or we're not going to have any star players playing in the latter
That's
part.
where the VAR could have been great for Scottish football, because you'd like to have seen an incident there where the referee could have gone across and taken into account the footage of that, or get some advice from somebody who had seen the footage.
Yeah, well, he got advice for the assistant linesman, and he sent him off. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how clear you can get.
That line, okay, well, look at the footage. Yeah, we barged you, so you're all right. Have a boot at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because you get bars doesn't mean you have to act violently.
Yeah.
No, I know that. He was wrong to do that.
Well, that's on the basis that you think it was a violent kick out. Listen, we'll agree to disagree. You can give us your view on it as well. Nevertheless, Rangers, alongside Hibernian, still involved in European football. Just a quick one, Gordon, before we move on to the game tomorrow night in the Champions League qualifier with Celtic. Because we're talking about Rangers, do you still see Rangers and Hibs being involved after this stage with Malda and Maribor on the horizon?
Yeah, I can do. I think that they could both go through. I think that they're in decent form. Hibs are scoring a lot of goals of late. The one problem for Rangers slightly, I think they'll miss Ryan Jack if he's going to be out for the games, because he has come on to a good game. He's been a steady holding midfield player for them, so he will be a loss. But I still think they can go through. It just depends on obviously whether they take their chances, because defensively they're a lot stronger than they were.
Okay. Before we talk about the game, Celtic against AEK Athens, let's talk about some of the news surrounding some players linked with Celtic and potentially one going out. This is, of course, Celtic rejecting a bid from Fulham for Dedryck Boyata. The manager, Brendan Rodgers, was talking about the Belgian international today. He said it would be difficult to let him go, but I don't think he was keen to shed any light on what's happening behind the scenes.
I don't have an update on it. It was something that was between the directors of both clubs to try and organise and deal with. So I have no further update on it.
Okay, no further update on that. If there's no update on it, Ruffy, I would suggest to you, if they can get a good few million for Boyata, if I was Celtic, I would take it and go elsewhere. I don't share anyone's view that they can't do without Boyata.
No, I think this will be a two-way thing. Obviously, Peter Lawwell will be trying to get as much money as possible. Depends what that went up to. And then Brendan Rodgers would have to back, is this Celtic defence good enough with these two young players? How much does he believe that Boyata is a big part of this Celtic defence? And then whatever money's there, then he'll have to make a decision, because he keeps talking up the two young boys. But like you, there's a lot of supporters out there through the last two seasons have made their mind up that he isn't the centre-half that they want. Okay, he's still he's not a young guy, is he? He's
27.
Yeah.
He's been at the
He's
World
good.
Cup.
He's good, but he's not consistent enough. But I agree with Ruffy. I think they've got to have somebody else in mind. If this money is coming in, they have already had to have identified another centre-half, because they can't afford to let him go and not bring MD in. They need another centre-back then.
Yeah, this is all what I call the classic transfer window. Let's praise somebody, build them up as if we want to hold them, and then you flush out extra money from clubs down south, quite simply, who have just lost the plot at times. They're paying daft money for players. I think Boyata's a bomb scare at times, and I think it would be better if Celtic got a more experienced player in to play alongside Ayer to help them, or potentially someone to at least test Lustig in that right back role.
I think what's probably, from Fulham's point of view, in the World Cup, he actually, until he lost his place, because once Company was fit again, they brought him back in. I thought he'd actually played well for Belgium in the previous games. The games I watched, he was pretty secure. So they've maybe looked at that and thought, he can do a job for us in the Premiership, wait and see.
Maybe. We'll see what the figure is. As far as a player coming in the door, of course, Celtic being linked with John McGinn, they've made more than a few bids for him. They've all been rejected. Hibs have a price in their head. Aston Villa are now in the mix. That's what I call a classic flushing out an extra bid from Celtic. Will they bite on this one? Well, Brendan Rodgers wants him.
Well, again, I've always said it's from a football context, he's a player that we clearly want in here. But an agreement has to be done, obviously, of course, with Hibs, and an agreement has to be done with the player and his representative. So until that's the case, then he doesn't become a Celtic player. But I think it's pretty clear from a footballing aspect that we wanted the player in here.
Okay, they're trying to flush out more money, Hibs?
Yeah, I think they are, but I think Boyata, as we've just discussed there, could be the pawn. If they could get him up to 12 million, and get that recognised other centre-half for maybe 5 or 6 million.
Yeah.
and up the money to McGinn. And still put money in the bank.
Hold on, you're suggesting that they're budgeting somewhere to try and get a player out to get some in. Are you kidding me? They're cash rich.
Yeah, no, but they don't seem to be cash rich.
No, but this is just a smokescreen, Ruffy.
No, but this is what the supporters are saying, right? We're cash rich. Well, why are we not bringing in 4 or 5 quality players?
Well, because you have been with us for 5 years and you just don't get the template. The template is don't buy until you get through all the qualifiers. Then, at a push, the manager gets the players because the chief executive knows what the remit is. It's simple.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the supporters will be looking at the Boyata, and you've already said you don't rate him at all. If you get 12 million for him, he's out the door. And then you bring in somebody at half of that price and then up the McGinn money. I mean, and then the supporters will be as happy as Larry. They've not spent any of that big pot of cash that you're talking about.
I know that, but I'm explaining to you the way the stages work on this, Gordon. It's so blatantly obvious. I've been watching it for 20 years.
I know.
Basically, what they do is they don't spend money until they get to the various stages of the group stages of the Champions League, based on the fact that they've got a title-winning side.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers will have given him a list. Brendan Rodgers, for the first summer, I've detected a little bit of agitation from him. It's quite simply, he wants players in early enough, but he's not getting them because they're doing the same thing they do every year.
Correct. But what would annoy him is the fact that he's maybe saying we've got a fight in our hands to get to the group stages. When they get to the group stages, they've got like 30, 35 million coming in. But if they don't get there, I can understand why he'll be quite angry, because he'll be saying we could have strengthened the squad and should have strengthened the squad, because they let a good midfield player go. Armstrong went. They've got 7 million for him. If they've identified John McGinn as a player who can do a job, why are they offering, say, £2 million for him?
Well, because
it's worth more than that.
The one thing I would say, and this is to Peter Lawwell's eternal credit, he is the best poker player when it comes to negotiating situations like this. He sits in, he waits, assesses who the opposition, if the credible bid is coming in, then he'll up his money. He did the same, many years ago, 10 years ago with Scott Brown and Rangers, when that battle was going. Wait, see what their threshold is, put in a 4 million, you've got him. So this John McGinn situation will play out over the next week, and he'll wait, and then he'll make his move. It's all a game of poker. The problem is you can't criticise it, because what's happening is year after year, Celtic keep making it.
The difficulty
apart from when you had Ronnie Dylan. Ronnie Dylan's there.
Let's put the scenario out there that for whatever reason it doesn't happen. You think there'd be a massive fallout?
Between Brendan Rodgers and Lawwell?
If Celtic never go out the group, would the supporters be happy with that, the way things are panning out?
It just, to be honest with you, Ruffy, nothing changes. They still will voice their displeasure. But it goes on, you're out. You're in the Europa League, you have to get on with it.
I'll tell you why there's two difficulties this time, because there's two. Well, one difficulty is there's two different windows closing dates, right?
Yes.
So Celtic could afford to hang on, wait to see what's happening before their window closes. But this time, they're going to be under pressure, because if Aston Villa are in from
the 9th.
Celtic are going to have to deal before that. They're going to have to deal by Thursday in order to get John McGinn if they really want him. So they can't just wait until the end of the Scottish transfer window's finished.
Yeah, well, it's all going to play out, Ruffy. Hang fire. I can see it all now. Okay, as far as the game's concerned, this is, of course, Celtic against AEK Athens, as ever. Greek football is volatile, to say the least, certainly on the evidence of last year, where AEK Athens won their first title in 24 years. This is what the Celtic manager makes of them.
They're obviously the champions of the country last season, so that always makes them a tough opponent because they have that winning mentality. But when I assess them, they look like a Champions League team to me. They play, the system is 4-4-2, and very, very fast on the counter attack. Got quick players at the top of the field. So this, over the course of the two games, will be a real test for us. But like I've always said, I think especially for us at home, we like to impose our game because we're a decent side as well, and we know that we can give them problems as well. But this will be a real good examination over 2 legs for us.
Malmo of Sweden and Vidi of Hungary are lying in wait in the final playoff round in this one. I think Celtic have to make sure that they take a a sufficient lead in this one, before they go over there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is actually a harder game than they would have in the next round. I think AEK Athens will be better than like Malmo, because I just feel it's a stronger league. There's more money in the Greek league and all that sort of thing. And the fortunate thing from Celtic's point of view is that Malmo have been playing games, but at least AEK Athens haven't played yet this season. They haven't had any competitive matches yet.
Yeah, I had a friendly last week.
Friendly, that's all they've had. They've not had any competitive games, so this is their first competitive match. So from that point of view, it might be a benefit to Celtic.
Yeah. Okay. How do you see it going?
I think Celtic will go through. I think they will. I think they will do enough to make sure that they for the first leg, that they'll take it and get through on over the two legs. Yeah.
Roffy?
Yeah, I think as long as they don't concede at home, I think they're good enough to go away from home and see it out.
Do you share Gordon's view that we'll have 3 clubs in European football?
Yeah, I do. I think looking at the opposition, they don't look as fearsome as what they have been in previous years. We know they're good sides because we saw them when they come over here, but they don't look like the forces of some of the teams we had to play to get into that, as past the Europa into the group stages.
Yep, okay. That's Celtic's match, AEK Athens, tomorrow. Tomorrow night on the programme, we'll look ahead to that game as it gets ready for the big kick-off, but we'll also cast our eye over Rangers opponents Maribor and Molde against Hibernian on tomorrow night's programme as well. Just before we finish, got to get your thoughts. Malky Mackay was speaking yesterday. I thought it was something quite close to your heart, Gordon. He says youngsters are in danger of being priced out of football. It's in danger of becoming a middle-class sport. Do you see it that way?
Yes, no question of that. I think at times, I think there's a lot of the factors. My understanding is how much money it takes sometimes for them to hire pitches and things like that, whether it's for training or for matches. So there's no doubt about it, a bit of money is required. And the last thing you want to see are kids from poorer areas, working class areas, because in my generation, and probably a lot since then, it's mainly boys from that level of background that come through and become the professional players. They're really committed because of that, more so than the middle class kids.
Yeah, I think there's a study or a book that was quoted just on the basis that some people who are incredibly driven will always make it anyway, Ruffy. The problem here is not so much the fact that maybe kids don't have the talent, it's the fact that parents don't have the money to be able to, first of all, get them the boots, be able to actually get them to the grounds, to get them to participate, to play in these games for the travel. The whole thing becomes really expensive, even to the point where, right now in the 21st century, if we didn't have a football strip, your mum sewed a couple of colours onto the shirt and away you go. But here, there's a certain level where the kids don't want to be embarrassed, they want to feel part of it. And that comes with a financial cost as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's part and parcel of it, but I think it's just quantity now. I think, as Gordon just touched on it briefly, we could go anywhere in Glasgow and see maybe a tennis-side somewhere, in any park.
Yeah.
You drove by in your car, morning and afternoon. It's not there now. Obviously, there are a lot of organised clubs, and good luck to the people who run these clubs. But for me, that would be the drop-off, for not enough players out there playing the game.
And I think even Alan McCann had to set up a charity, hasn't he, in order to try and fund young players.
Yeah.
So there is a charity out there to try and help the sort of working class from the kids from the poorer areas to be able to fund their football. Yeah,
which suggests that there is a gap developing that we need to still try and include at the grassroots level people from less well-off areas, to be perfectly honest with you. Let's hope we can do that. Let's hope Malky's got something, a bigger plan in place. Of course, still reminds me, Ruffy, of about 20 years ago, Bill McMurdo phoned me and said, look, you coming up to play in this game? And I thought it was going to be organised 11 a-sides, and there we turned up at a park in Uddingston, and it was 22 a-side with the jerseys down.
Yeah, we were the exact same in Knightswood. We had to go up to Drumchapel, and unfortunately for us, we had to give the guy a game that owned the ball, and he was hopeless.
And he was hopeless,
we had to play him.
I have to tell you, Bill was 50 when he phoned me for that game. Thanks to Gordon Smith and Alan Ruff. We haven't quite got on well tonight on the programme. We won't be hanging about with each other, but then again, tomorrow, after it's all kind of a calm down, we'll be friends again. Hopefully you can join us on the programme. Thanks for watching tonight's football show.